I remember as a young Marine thinking, the only person I'm destined to become is the person I decide to be.
We have to be at our best to be able to help others. You need to walk your talk.
I think there are three levels. There's a job and there's a career and a calling. And I think especially with young people, they have to find their calling.
Believe in your breakthrough. Welcome to this special recording of Grateful and Full of Greatness, episode 66. This one is sponsored by the Meaningful Growth Foundation. My guests include three very close mentors of mine, experts in the field of sports psychology, who have coached thousands of student athletes with a deep understanding of human behavior and how to go from where you are now to where you want to be. I've had these individuals on individual episodes. So if you want to learn more about their personal bio, please go check those out. I have Dr. Cristina Versari, Brian Callanan, and Dr. Rob Gilbert. This webinar is filled with listeners who are with us live, and they'll ask us questions throughout the latter half of this conversation. I'm really grateful for all of you being here, ready to partake in this webinar. It's titled, Believe in Your Breakthrough. If you are struggling and seeking hope, if you are looking for one lesson or one reminder to turn the volume up in your life, or if you are already excelling and you are striving to reach a pinnacle of your potential, this episode is for you. It will be emotional, it will be purposeful, and it will be action-oriented. As we get ready for the Christmas and holiday season, heading into 2025 with bold goals and rejuvenating aspirations, I'm excited to have this roundtable discussion with such bright minds, gentle souls, and powerful leaders. Dr. Cristina Versari, Dr. Rob Gilbert, and Coach Brian Callanan, thank you three for being here.
It's an honor.
Thank you for having me.
So what is a belief? For everybody that's listening, it's a repeated thought. That's what a belief is. And we add some emotion to that. Over time, it becomes something like a core belief. It's a deep feeling of certainty about what something means, how we feel about ourselves or the world around us. It's the axioms in which we build our psychological homes are. And I will say this, a bundle of beliefs make a mindset, right? So you hear that word a lot, mindset. So I'd like to start off, and I will throw the microphone to Dr. Cristina Versari. What is the belief that made you chase down sports psychology, go into coaching, and then what allows you to sustain coaching for so many years?
I started swimming when I was 6 years old, so I'm still swimming. So sports was very important to me, and growing up, that's what I did. And when I started psychology school in college, I couldn't find any area that I had a lot of interest in specializing until I met one of my instructors that asked me if I had ever heard about sports psychology. And I said no, and she explained to me what it was. And from that day on, I decided that's what I wanted to do. I was fascinated with the idea. I have been around athletes at also my university, and I thought that's wonderful. I wanted to do that, but there wasn't any training available. This was in Brazil, so I planned to move to the United States to attend graduate school, and I studied under the founders of the field of sports psychology, Dr. Bruce Ogilvie and Dr. Robert Neiderfer. So I had wonderful mentors, and I have immediately after finishing graduate school, I started working with the MBA, and I continued to learn. I think I learned more from the players and from the clients than what was being taught in school. And I felt that I could offer my contribution in the field would be significant because there was a lack of applied work. And that's what I was learning, that's what I was specializing in. And that's what has motivated me to continue the field to this day.
Outstanding. I will say, when you talk about that engagement and that applied side of things, it was the first time I was walking away from Wall Street. I had an economics degree. Nothing I read in economics books led me for Wall Street preparation. But then when I left there, I go up and show up the doorstep of Dr. Rob Gilbert and his graduate applied sports psychology class. 45 years at that time. He was teaching for about 42 years. And I will say, the engagement that Dr. Rob Gilbert has as a teacher is of the highest. So, as you say, Dr. Gilbert, it's one thing to be in school and it's another to be into school. What makes you into teaching, and how have you stuck with it for so many years?
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. Well, I'm going to tell you my little secret that I believe in every class, I'm going to change somebody's life. Now, let me tell you the truth. This semester, not one student out of my 182 students has said I've changed their life, but that really doesn't matter. I believe I'm changing their life. So I often tell the story about Pete Rose. Pete Rose was chasing Ty Cobb's record for most number of hits in a baseball career. And Pete Rose was a lifetime 300 hitter, meaning 3 times out of 10 he got a hit, but 7 times out of 10 he didn't get a hit. So he needed 14 hits to break Ty Cobb's record. And a sports writer said, "Hey, Pete, how many at-bats will you need to get the 14 hits?" And Pete Rose said 14. So I think Pete Rose and I mean, he expected to get a hit every time up, even though 20 years of statistics showed him that he wouldn't. And I expected, I mean, that's a pretty fun thing to do, thinking you're changing people's lives. And I believe it, whether it's true or not. I think it's important to realize that stories don't have to be true to be effective, and beliefs don't have to be true to be effective. So that's my belief, that you come to my class, something great's going to happen.
Doc, what I think of when you even say that is, you'll never outperform your own opinion of yourself. So when I hear that Pete Rose story, I'm like, okay, what's his opinion of himself? Regardless of what happens, he believes that it's going to happen. You said the word expectation inside of that. And a man that had expectations of me when I was a very young boy, picked up a lacrosse stick as a 5th grader due to this man. I think many people sometimes shy away because of expectations. It's very hard, right? But I think the word standard could also be mixed in with that expectation. And something that I deeply appreciate about Coach Brian Callanan is, ever since I got into the sport in 5th grade, he's always had that expectation. He was almost as steady as the waves of an ocean when it comes to coaching. And I would turn it over to you, Coach Callanan, and just say, how have you been able to be so consistent for so long as a coach?
Well, again, just an absolute honor to be here this evening, and my journey a little different. Although I was a fairly accomplished high school athlete, I never really had any quality coaching, if you will. It was more, we just played, and the best players played, and that's how it went. And it was all about the sport and nothing else. And then I joined the United States Marine Corps, and that's kind of where it all began for me. And as a young man, you think you have an opinion of yourself, which may not be that honest, or that self-awareness might not be there. And you get into a scenario like Marine Corps boot camp, and it becomes abundantly clear that perhaps you didn't know who you really are. And I think it was that shock to the system, and there was just kind of like a pivotal moment in boot camp when you're terrified, motivated, unsure, so many things going on, that I had like an epiphany about self-awareness and the importance of mentorship, that these drill instructors were now going to give their all to turn us into United States Marines, the best Marines we could be. But it wouldn't happen unless we bought into the program. And I think, I remember as a young Marine thinking, the only person I'm destined to become is the person I decide to be. And I just kind of bought into the Marine Corps ethos, and I became ultimately the youngest sergeant in the entire Marine Corps, because of that belief in what I was doing. When I transitioned to law enforcement, a paramilitary structure, not so, there was leadership issues, and I think that's maybe for another podcast. But what I found was the importance of mentorship is just it's just unequaled. And I felt as a coach, and that's when I decided to start coaching, was that I could take this knowledge that I had, because I went in as a blank slate pretty much, and formulated this way of life that led me to success. And I felt compelled to bring that to young men. And that was the beginning of the coaching. And it went on from there. And I grew as a coach. I mean, you probably could tell some horror stories about me, but hopefully they're not all that bad. And over the years, you just learn what works and doesn't work. And like, I always felt this responsibility to unlock every young man's potential, and that's how it's.
I will say this, Coach. I was thinking about asking a different question, but when you say that young and evolution to the veteran coach, I do remember you talking about on one of the podcasts how you were very demonstrative as a young coach, and then matured and evolved into that. Why don't I go there? Because I think if I was to talk about the foundation, which is powering this podcast, some of the things that I say all the time is pain becomes your purpose. And one of the things Dr. Versari said to me is she never really planned on becoming a teacher. It never was like really in the cards. And then she finds herself becoming a teacher. And in the same way, I could speak to Dr. Rob Gilbert saying that relaxation was something that he needed to work on. And then he started to teach it at such a high level. But first and foremost, Dr. Versari, could you speak to that? How you weren't expecting to get into teaching, and then I applaud you now. It's 25 years of SDUIS and a university that you founded in 1999.
Not only I wasn't expecting, when I was in high school and trying to decide what I was going to do, I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want, and that was teaching. That was the only decision I made, because my mother was an elementary school teacher, and I saw, she came home from work, and she worked until 11 o'clock at night every day, grading the students' work. And I said, I don't want to be a teacher. And that was my first job. When I was 19, I was a fitness instructor. And when I finished my program at the university, I started my master's program, I started teaching. I created the first sports psychology program in Brazil. And after I had worked with athletes for a long time, I noticed there was a huge gap between what was in the textbooks and what the reality was. There was a huge disconnect between the two. So I opened a university to teach sports psychology as the San Diego University for Integrative Studies, and we have been operating now for 25 years, training people to work with athletes. Mark, you look like you're going to ask something.
No.
Did you say something? Okay. I never intended to be a teacher, and my approach is very applied. I like to work. I like to do the work, and I like to share that with people, how I work, how I get results. And it's very different than textbook teaching. You repeat what's in the textbook, the students take a midterm and a final. I can't relate to that. But the approach that we use at our school for all the programs is applied psychology. So that motivates me. I love doing that. And I have trained a lot of professional sports psychologists who are very successful doing their work. And it's a joy to see the results of that.
I will say, just to point it out, when I started working with you, I was 4 years into professional lacrosse, and you were teaching me the principles of self-awareness, like Coach Brian Callanan brought up, communication, neurolinguistic programming, relationships, belief system, and core values, which I'm sure we will get into here today. Dr. Gilbert, consistency, every single day since November 1992.
Could I screw things up and ask Dr. Versari a question?
Absolutely.
Dr. Versari, you're probably the only person in the world. I consider the NBA players the best athletes in the world. And so you work with the best athletes in the world and you work with the average athletes. Are the psychological problems any different?
Depends on what aspect of that. The personality profile is the main difference. Every sport attracts a certain type of personality, just like careers. So whether it's at the NBA level or high school or college, basketball attracts a certain type. There's primary three types of personality that is attracted to basketball. And then if you're working with lacrosse, for example, they have the opposite personality type. So they are very different in the sense of their makeup and their profile. So there's a lot of difference in that sense. Swimmers are very different. And so every sport attracts a different type. But in terms of issues, concerns, most people have this very similar issues, and it's just a different level. So what is it that you want to do to take yourself to the next level? But the issues are very similar. The more advanced the level, the smaller the change that is going to impact the results. So if you work with NBA players, it's a very small adjustment that's going to make a difference in the results. If you're working at the high school level, college level, it's going to be a lot of changes. So the gap is wider at that level.
Yeah.
But in my experience, which people find this interesting, the number one issue that most athletes that I've worked with had is relationships. Even though that was not the purpose of the meetings that we had, we're working on career planning, educational planning, second career, or we're working on performance enhancement. The conversation that came up more often was relationships, because that's something that's universal. We all have relationships. We all have relationship challenges. And athletes, especially at the professional level, have to deal with relationships with the coaching staff, especially with the head coach. If their personalities are different, there's always some level of conflict. And then personal lives, but it's very difficult to focus on your performance 100% and maintain balance in your personal life. So that, in my experience, has been the number one issue that they have.
All right, so I'll feed off of that. And this, I was on a Hazelton Betty Ford webinar, and this really shook me. So I'll share it with everybody. It talked about 3 things that don't lead to lasting performance enhancement, and then 3 things that do lead to lasting performance enhancement. And I'll go through them quickly just so I can ask Dr. Gilbert the question. But it shook me when I heard that the 3 things that don't lead to lasting performance enhancement are big goals alone, education and information alone. Right. So over $70 billion goes into health and fitness information. But in America, we have an obesity rate that's climbing into 70%. And then the last one is motivation, which I found that would be really interesting. How does that not lead to lasting performance enhancement? But the 3 things that did were big goals plus an action plan. So as we're getting ready for 2025, it's not good enough to have the goal, but you have to have how you're going to get there. Second was standards. What's the standard you're going to keep for yourself? And the third was role models. And that's why I thought today would be such a powerful thing. Anytime I have big decisions to make, I think about these 3 and most important people in my life. I will dovetail back into the question, Doc Gilbert, and that is many people that are on this live with us here tonight came through your success hotline. I hope that you can speak to it a little bit, because not only are you a role model, but you've had the standard of producing a success hotline message every single morning since 1992, November. So could you speak to how you've been able to maintain that standard and how you've been able to be a role model for these people that are here tonight?
Well, I appreciate that, but doing a success hotline message every single day is no more difficult than Mr. Murata brushing his teeth every day. I mean, I've done it so many times. First of all, it would be impossible for me to not do it. But there are AA members that it's impossible for them not to go to a meeting every day. So it's just a part of me. It's not something I do. It's a part of me. It's like it's a difference between, Mark, you don't play lacrosse, you're a lacrosse player. It's a part of you. And so I think, I don't teach kids, I'm a teacher. So it's a part of you. And I think that's an important thing. And as Dr. Versari said, I have a relationship with my hotline. I'm married to it. It's part of me. I'm never going to get divorced. So you don't sell a product. The product is part of you. You don't teach math. Math is a part of you, or math teacher. So I think that's the answer. It's just I can't not do it. And it's something I truly, truly love. And just like I was saying before, I really, really think it helps people. But the person it helps the most is me, because there's a quote out there, I think you told me, Mark, be careful what you say because you're listening. So I'm listening. I'm the only one that's heard all the messages. So I'm listening to what I say. And it's been the best mental training I've ever had, because we could talk to ourselves, or we could listen to ourselves. And when we listen to ourselves, we have this crazy little voice in our mind that talks to us over and over and over again. But we don't have any control over the little voice in our mind, but we do have control over what we say to the little voice, what we say to ourselves. So I think talking to ourselves beats listening to yourself.
This episode is brought to you by Thorne Health Tech. Which company do you trust when it comes to your health? Thorne Health Tech provides over 190 supplements and products necessary to avoid deficiencies and optimize mental acuity, holistic health, speed, strength, and conditioning. For years, I've taken their amino complex, whey protein, and elite multi AM and PM vitamins. I'm proud to represent Thorne. Why? Because their quality of products is the highest, as well as purity and potency of every supplement. They're backed by the Mayo Clinic. The raw materials that go into the supplements are NSF certified for sport, as well as tested and retested to meet Olympic standards. So if you're looking to optimize your performance and get to the next level, whether it's to meet your protein thresholds or just optimize holistically, trust Thorne. To get started, enter your email and enjoy 25% off at thorne.com/you/Mark Glicini. That's thorne.com/you/Mark Glicini. Enjoy. Now, back to the episode. Wow, there's so many I could say there. First, I'll say who before do. Who before do really comes to mind there, right? If you figure out who you want to become in 2025, then what are the actions that identity is filled with? And I think if I was to look at the puzzle pieces that make up a certain identity, those are your core values, right? So show me what you're really, really interested in. Show me something that you really prize and see as priority, and that can make up the identity. Coach Brian Callanan, I'm coming your way with this one because I heard even just this morning, I was hunting and gathering new information, and I heard someone speaking about purpose. And one of the things they said in finding your purpose is to match up your deep gladness with the world's deep hunger. I love that one. So your purpose is your deep gladness with the world's deep hunger. And how I turn that into a question for you, Coach, is ever since you were coaching me, right? From a young age, even to now, you've had this tenacity and this ferocity and this intensity about the way in which you coached. It was always not like over serious, but you said things with intent. So I just want to throw that your way and say, how have you been able to stay so purposeful?
I've always believed, and when I say believe, I mean really, truly believed that what you teach on the athletic field translates into everyday life and goals outside of athletics. And the coaching on the field to the team is for the team environment and the individual at the same time, and how it's going to translate into the rest of your life. Like I always said, it's not something you turn on and off, it's how you live. And, the qualities you're talking about, like foundational beliefs, right? Self-awareness. Who am I really? Who do I want to be? The passion to pursue your goals, the tenacity to be able to navigate the obstacles in your path, because they're going to be there. There is no silver staircase. Life is a journey filled with obstacles. And what defines us is how we navigate those, and then the commitment to your belief And then this kind of the back end of it is, and I really have never mastered what that is. I just know it exists in terms of there has to be a belief, whether it's faith, a belief in something bigger than yourself. And you keep those things together as an athlete, you can accomplish your athletic goals, keep them in your life for your professional, if it's not sports, whatever your business is and how you live your life, it becomes who you are. And it's not something you overtly do, like, oh, I'm going to be committed, or I'm going to be tenacious. It's who you are. So it's never a switch. That's the only way I know how to do things. I've often said, like I have commitment to putting the garbage cans out on Wednesday night. Like I have to do it, and I have to make sure the wheels are lined up on the curb and that they're out there. Like, because it's just who you become, and I think that gets lost. I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of gray. I think when you take away the gray and you really get down to core characteristics and beliefs, it just lifts the haze, and I think you can get a real solid, passionate take on what you want to do.
I heard a psychologist speaking that the body doesn't like when you're false as well, right? So if you hold your arm straight out and you say a truthful statement, such as I like fresh air, and then try to push it down, you're actually stronger. But if you put your arm straight out and then you said, I like being sick, watch your arm come down. It's actually a miraculous thing. So we actually do not like to lie to ourselves. Coming to you, Dr. Versari, in the fact that many people would listen to Coach Brian Callanan and say, yes, but I'm fearful of what might happen. And I was listening to an individual who is also a mentor who invests in young entrepreneurs. And one of the things that he said that he invests in is these 4 qualities and characteristics that the individual can have. And that is, if they tell a great story, if they're obsessed with what they do, if they have conviction being that they are able to take their inner ideal and make it an outer reality through hell or high water, right? So a repeated thought over and over again becomes a belief, and then they have absolute conviction and they will not waver off of that. But the last one that he said is they're great stewards of risk. They know when to give up. Right? There's a great card player, I forget her name right now, won Texas Hold'em championship. She wrote a book called Quit. It's like, really? Quit? But what she's saying is quit the wrong things and go all in on other things. But I want to come over to you in terms of risk, because many people want to have that sort of commitment. They want to have that conviction, but we have these fears, these underlying fears. So what would be the message that you would give to that person that's listening, that's a little bit hesitant, a little bit doubtful, a little bit fearful, but wants to take that step?
Whatever you focus on become reality. So you have to focus on what you want and not what you don't want. As long as you have clear goals, you have a vision, you have an action plan, you need to keep moving forward. I always tell people, don't tell your goals to other people. Don't tell what you're going to do. Tell people what you've done. Because especially the people that are closest to us, they care about us. They want to protect us, and they're going to discourage us to do something that we're not sure if we're going to succeed in doing that. So there's a lot of people that are going to say, no, you shouldn't do that. So just don't share that with anybody except your mentors. Always talk to your mentors, people that are more successful than you are, that they have done that before, whatever you're trying to do, and they can help you by sharing their experience and support you in taking action in the direction that you want to go. So those are the people that you should talk to and learn from their experience.
One of the things that comes to mind, and as I was getting ready and talking to you, I actually texted you guys each separately, what's made you successful for so long? And one of the things, in some way, you guys have all said, is you guys are all very curious. You've never lost that curiosity, right? You're all voracious readers or learners, always really open to new ideas. You know, the one-liner there is all cures come from curiosity. All cures come from curiosity. Coming to you, Dr. Gilbert, in the fact that the best storyteller I know, and many people would nod in agreement with me on this call, right? You make things fun, you make things engaging. What got you into storytelling? What got you into being fun in the classroom? And how do you keep your student athletes curious?
Before we get to that, I mean, I am totally happy with this seminar tonight. These are my notes so far. We're only halfway into it, and these are my notes so far, you know? And I cannot not take a note. I mean, it's impossible for me to not. I go to movies and I take notes, and because I don't want to lose the. I'm watching a news broadcast and I take notes. So you know. So your question was, I lost track of your question.
How do you keep your student athletes as curious as you are, fun, engaging through storytelling?
Well, the thing is, first of all, something like curiosity cannot be taught. It can be caught. And I think that's, you know, in higher education, we're so into teaching. Well, our students are going to catch what we are. They're going to catch our characteristics more than they're going to be taught about glycolysis. I mean, in the end, I have a lot of people that become personal trainers. And I said, tell me the truth. How much has a Krebs cycle helped you as a personal trainer? How much is knowing about the mitochondria helped you, you know? But how much is being around a motivated individual, then you caught that, you know, I want to be like that person. I am much older than anybody here. And way back when the world was different, and I had a lot of friends in Boston, a big Irish Catholic town, that became priests. And why did they become priests? Because they caught it from another priest. You know, I want to be like him. And I think that's such a key thing that we differentiate between teaching and catching, you know? I want to have the Mark works out harder than anybody. I mean, when I go to the gym with him and see what he does, I work out harder because I'm just around him. You know, I catch that. He doesn't teach me technique. He teaches me, you know, this incredible passion. So I think we hang around the right people. Amazing things are going to happen.
Oh my gosh!
And I have no idea
what that.
I have no idea whether that answers your question.
That's okay. Here we go right into it. I'll say this. I was going to say it earlier, but I didn't get a chance to. I learned recently abracadabra. You know how you say that when you're a little kid, right? Abracadabra, magicians, right? That's all we think of. It really means, from the Hebrew translation, as I speak, so I create. As I speak, so I create. And if you could be impeccable with your word and what you want to become and what you put out there and what you're interested in, and are you, like Dr. Versari just said, focus on the things you want, shift that, right? So I'll come over to you. I'm going to allow one of you to take it, Dr. Versari or Coach Callanan here, is you guys are consistent and congruent, and you say what you think and you do what you say you will do so often. It must be hard. My question to you is, off the back of Dr. Gilbert talking about how energy is caught, right? And I think you can also catch, you know, if somebody's anxious, or you catch if somebody's stressed, and you can catch if you're around bad energy. How do you manage your own stress, right? You're so impeccably sound. As Coach Callanan has said to me, when it comes to leadership, there's going to be some people on the team that are looking for a chink in your armor, and they're going to say, I don't have to listen to you anymore because you don't do all the things you say you do, right? So my question to you is, how do you maintain your own stress, manage your own stress, so that you can show up and be on point for your team, for your culture, and for your organization?
Well, for me, it's about priorities, right? And you know, I had a fairly stressful career while coaching, and I just knew on my way from point A to point B, which was practice, I had to compartmentalize whatever else was going on so that I could be on point for the team I had a responsibility to. And it's the minutia, right? For me, I mean, it's always on time, always motivated, always passionate, and to lead by example. And I think that's a thing that gets lost a lot too. We speak about that when you and I talk about leadership, Mark, and the importance of being on point and being who you say you are, because people are looking to find those chinks in the armor, because then that gives them the ability to slack off, because now you've created a venue for them to rationalize their own efforts. And I always felt like, I mean, you know, we never canceled a practice, snow, rain, ice, not once, because we didn't need to, because I was going to stand out there with you guys no matter what. And I think that's so important, whether it's athletics or anything else, is authenticity and attention to detail, the minutia, because people are always looking, and they're always looking. Unfortunately, it's the human condition. People want to find a way to rationalize effort. And if you don't give it to them, you're then helping them maximize their own potential. If that answers
Perfect
the
answer. No, it does. And if people are wondering why I'm a little off tilt, now they know why, because you were doing that to me in the ice when I'm in fifth grade. I had the opportunity to partner Meaningful Growth Foundation with, I just ran the half marathon down here in West Palm Beach with Special Olympics Florida. And one of the things I was saying while I was running is rest at the end, not in the middle. That's all I kept saying. Anytime that I was going through a little bit of a dark spot or, you know, hitting a rut, I just kept saying to myself, rest at the end. Not in the middle. And so now I'll go over to Dr. Versari, who's always had that leadership by example, especially for the NBA players. And what I want to ask you, Dr. Versari, is you've always talked about this kind of responsibility that Coach Callanan was just pointing to, and the fact that you have this responsibility to show up and be your best self. And I know that's really important to you. So really open-ended, could you just speak to how you've taken things with that sort of intention and seriousness and responsibility, because you do that in every single thing that you do as a mentor to me, but also you always want to be at your best. So could you speak to that?
Especially as a person in the helping profession, we have to be at our best to be able to help others. You need to walk your talk. And at any time in my career that I didn't feel I was at my best, I wouldn't see clients until I regroup and did whatever I need to do to get some balance back in my life, and then I would see clients again. I strongly believe in that. You have to first take care of yourself. You have to find balance, which is very challenging, the way we are busy in so many different areas of our lives. But you gotta have balance, which is the mind, body, and the spirit approach. So you gotta take care of your physiology and your physical body, your mind, and be able to control your thoughts and manage your emotions, and your spirituality. It's very important to have belief in something, like Brian said, greater than yourself, because when nothing else works, that's where we go. We pray. So that's really important, whatever the concept and the idea of a God is for that person. So having balance between those areas is really important for you to be able to help other people. So I have always emphasized that a lot in my personal life, and also the people that I train, the students that I train to become a helping professional.
So being in the helping profession, Doc, Gilbert, one of the things that you've shared with me is, I can be feeling really down sometimes, but right when I'm in front of the students, I turn myself on, right? So could you speak to, the young teacher that's out there that wants to take their engagement and their teaching to the next level? What piece of advice would you give to them?
I think there are three levels. There's a job, and there's a career, and a calling. And I think especially with young people, they have to find their calling. And let me tell you how I know I found my calling. And this is true for me as a teacher, but it might be true for other people in sales or whatever, that there are healing shrines all over the world. In France, there are a lot of healing shrines, and all over the world, there are healing shrines. I'm driving to school some days, and I don't feel good. But I know as soon as I get in the class, all my aches and pains, my headaches, as soon as I start doing what I do, my calling, I feel better. It was the same thing when I was a high school wrestling coach. So that's the whole thing, but it might be playing chess for you. It might be writing for you. It might be selling planes for you. But when we find our calling, and I think very, very few people in our culture find their soulmate romantically, and very few people find their calling, because I don't even think they know what a calling is. They're just looking for a job. You know, I had a student the other day, and he's going through all the tests to become a state trooper in the state of New Jersey, which is not easy. And I said, well, why do you want to be a state trooper? He said, like, because I could retire after 20 years. I'm saying, no, you don't want to be a state trooper because you can retire after 20. You want to be a state trooper. Talk about that, Coach Callahan. Do you find people like that?
Oh God, yeah. You
Yeah.
know, and I mean, I worked with guys like that, but
Yeah.
but I think it's a great point, Doc, and I think it goes back to a word, and you know, when we say passion, we're not talking about with your significant other in the back seat of the car. No, it's about the passion to, like, no matter what, I'm going to accomplish this goal, and to believe in it, not at practice, but 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about true passion. And I think we don't talk about it enough, and I don't think we talk about, like, tenacity, and you know, especially, I think, you know, as the world is always changing, the ability to navigate obstacles, and to display tenacity with positivity, like, not negative, but develop a plan to get around this obstacle that is going to then propel you towards your goal. It's like you said, a calling. Like, and that's what I always felt about coaching was that no, this was what I was destined to do, because I know the importance of mentorship, and instilling these qualities in young people so that the rest of their lives they're fulfilled, you know. And I think that word passion has so many applications.
So I have something with my students. It's called the $1,000 challenge. And I show a video that anybody can look up on YouTube. It's a video of Josiah Vieira, Josiah Vieira, Josiah Vieira. And he's, when the video was taken, he's about 7 or 8 years old. And he has a disease called progeria, where he has the body of a 70 or 80-year-old man. But this kid is totally in love with baseball, totally. He's horrible at it. He could hardly run, hardly hit, but he just loves it, So I say, if you find me anybody that loves their profession as much as Josiah, send me a video. I'll send you $1,000. And I've gotten some good videos. Like, check out, it's a University of Michigan kid. I'm blocking on his name. But my favorite one is Dr. Tyler Ley, Ley, and he's a professor at Oklahoma State. And he starts out his lectures. So put Tyler Ley Sunday morning, and you'll see on the Sunday morning show, they did a segment on him. And he starts out his lectures saying, I love concrete. His whole life, he's passionate about concrete. Now, I don't know how he could be passionate about concrete, but he probably doesn't know how he could be passionate about sports psychology. So we have a blessing with YouTube. We could surround ourselves with passionate people. We could listen to them all day, you know, rather than, you know, all this other crap that's on there. And there are enough passionate people out there that that we could every day we could hear a lecture from a passionate person.
Thank you so much, Doc. I mean, I want to just ground with an exercise here with people so they can take away. I think we've been talking a lot about core values, but getting pen to paper on that would be really great endeavor to figure out what you're most interested in, what's really important to you, putting those down on a list. And then I think if you look at the combination of those puzzle pieces, you're going to find the identity inside of that. And the identity means to make the same as. So as you head into 2025, who do you want to be your same as? Is it a champion? Is it a writer? Is it a speaker? Is it a mentor to some other person? And I have the blessing of having these three mentors here who I can always turn to. And one of the slogans that I heard about helping other people was this, and it was really helpful for me. And that is, you are best positioned to help the person you once were. You are best positioned to help the person you once were. And I know I can go around and speak to each one of these three. And as I was coming to their door and not stopping and asking questions, they were willing to do that because they saw that I had that interest in sports psychology in the same capacity that they did. So one more question to each, and then I'm going to go over to the chat. And that would be to Dr. Versari. You know, you're going through this 25 years congratulations on SDUIS. I encourage everybody to reach out to her if you would like to learn more about the best sports psychology certificate in the nation. And that's C. Versari at sduis.edu. That's C. Versari at sduis.edu. And the question I want to ask you, Dr. Versari, has been about the obstacles and about the pain points and their navigation through them. So you came over here from Brazil in your early life, and now you've had this long established career in sports psychology. How have you been able to keep that stamina, resilience, and toughness to navigate potential obstacles that you've had?
I think I've learned very early in my life that not to give up. When I want to do something and I have a goal and I have a mission and I have a purpose, I'll continue to work on that until I accomplish. So there's been a lot of challenges, but the rewards are so much greater than that. And I just stay on a mission. I keep moving forward, make a decision, decide what you want, set your goals, take action, and keep moving forward. No matter what happened, it doesn't distract me away from what my purpose is.
Same to you, Coach Callanan. How you talked about passion a lot here tonight. What about one of the biggest obstacles that you've navigated that maybe somebody that's a young coach listening right now wants to maintain the passion and find a way through your story?
Well, I think it has to be genuine, much like, Dr. Versari just said, early in my, being the son of immigrant parents and not having maybe some of the opportunities growing up that others had. And then I go into the Marine Corps and the same thing, you're one of, 300,000. How are you going to distinguish yourself and reach the goals when, like, what are you waiting for? And I think understanding that you're the master of your own destiny. And I chose to commit to living a certain way to reach my goals. And it worked. And then the same then kind of translated to coaching, where as a young coach, again, you mentioned earlier, I was very much more demonstrative and vocal and maybe a little bit lost on the wins and losses and kind of wasn't focusing on the real mission, which was the players and their development as young men. So I think it's this self-awareness and the courage to pursue your goals without hesitation. And as a young cop, right? Like there's 35,000 cops in New York City. There's only 100 homicide detectives. And that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't have a dad who was a captain or an uncle who was an inspector. So I didn't have what we called on the job then a rabbi, someone to look out for you and kind of pull you out of the horde. The only way to do it was to be the best at everything. And that's why I was never late. My boots were always shined. I always had a haircut. I made the most arrests because the way for me to get there, I had to do it strictly on my own. But I wasn't going to have expectation paralysis and wait for it to happen. I had to formulate a plan to make it happen. No different in any other field or athletics. If you want to be the best lacrosse player in the world, we would have a 3-hour practice, and as soon as it ended, you'd ask me, could you stay longer and could I feed you balls so you could shoot from the wing? Because that you wanted to be the best shooter there ever was. And that's what I mean. It's all about execution and actually doing, not thinking all the time. We can all have dreams, right? And sitting on the couch having a dream and having no plan or strategy to execute it, that's all it is a dream. It's not going anywhere. you know.
Thank you, Coach. I mean, people that are listening to this are definitely picking up on your passion. You know, you've always had it, never wavered. I can speak to that. I see some questions coming through on the chat. One of them is about personality, so I'll throw that to Dr. Versari. And you spoke about the different personality types associated with sports. What are the three personalities associated with football and baseball? Do you have anything on the other sports other than lacrosse and basketball?
I passed 22 different sports. For football, it's very difficult because there's so many players. So you find almost all types. So you have to narrow down per position. And I never had a sample that was large enough to be able to have something that I felt comfortable in terms of narrowing down this position attracts this type, because you find all types. Basketball, there's primarily three types. If anybody's familiar with the Myers-Briggs, the number one type in the NBA is ISTJ. So most NBA players have the same profile of the typical CEO in the American corporations. Baseball is very similar. Baseball players are also thinkers. But then when you go to swimming, for example, it's completely the opposite. And surprisingly to me, lacrosse is exactly the opposite as basketball. So the majority of the lacrosse players, like I would say 90%, are intuitive feelers and they're extroverts. So it's a very unique personality type for that type of sports to me. So every sport's going to attract a different type. I don't want to go into too specific, because I don't know how many people are familiar with that. But if anybody has any question, they can contact me. I'll be happy to have a longer conversation if they would like.
Outstanding. I put your email in the chat. Dr. Gilbert, I'm going to come to you for one more question here about
Mark,
repeated.
I've had this unbelievable revelation just now when Coach Callanan was speaking. Now I know who your role model for haircuts was. You know,
Role models in more ways than one. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, I've never seen Mark one strand of hair touch your ear. You know,
Now you know where it came from.
I know where it came from. Role models.
So, Doc, my question to you was about repeated messages. So what do you find yourself coming back to all the time, right? So you've been teaching there for over 45 years at Montclair State University. What do you find yourself repeating most to your students throughout your entire curriculum in sports psychology?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, the thing that strikes me right now, just being here tonight, is I tell them how I got into sports psychology was I was a psych major in undergraduate school, and I took a class called Intro to Physical Education. And in one lecture, one time, Dr. Kroll talked about sports psychology once. He never talked about before or after that. He talked about the emerging field of sports psychology. And I always think, what would happen if I missed that lecture? Because of that lecture, all of a sudden, light bulbs went off in my mind. I said, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. And so that's what's so exciting. You know, it's Disney has really done us a disservice. You know, Prince Charming is not going to show up at your door on Saturday night. You know, we have to go looking for it. And we show up at seminars. Now, the sad thing about this seminar, and looking at the people here, the ones that I know, you people don't need this. You know, Mr. Murata doesn't need this seminar. Harry doesn't need this seminar. Harry teaches people how to fly, believe it or not. The amazing thing is, I think the thing I come away with more than ever is you are just one strategy away from going from good to unbelievable. Just one strategy, and we have to find the right strategy. You know, what is the right strategy? Nobody has a bad memory. You just have an untrained memory. I showed a video today in class of Samson Duda. He's a present Mr. Universe, like unbelievable body. I said to my students, if you train like he trained, if you eat like he eats, if you take the drugs he takes, you can have a body like he has. You know, you uses his strategies. If you train like Mark, you're going to be in the best shape of anybody in the world. So I think that's the thing, that we're just one strategy. And most people, they don't think that way. They say, oh, I have a bad memory. No, you have an untrained memory. Oh, I have a bad body. No, I have an untrained body. and you use the right strategies in training. So when you get to my age, which is 77, you start thinking about what's going to be on my tombstone. So there are the final two on my tombstone are the two words: training or extreme. Training, like I believe anybody could be trained to do anything. And extreme, if you're going to be great, you have to be extreme. And the people here tonight, the one common denominator we all have is extreme. We have a person here, Dr. John Dellett. It took him, put in the chat, how many years did it take you to get your PhD, John? It took him, I think 25 years to get his PhD. Now, there was some sickness involved, but he never, ever quit.
This episode is brought to you by Whoop. For the last several years, I have not taken this off my wrist. Okay, maybe I have, but it was just to change the colors. I truly trust Whoop. It's a wearable that lets me know about my resting heart rate variability, respiratory rate, and so much more. I wake up in either the green, yellow, or red, and I know if I should prioritize training and working out harder, or I need to prioritize recovery. I was always looking for ways to optimize and take my performance and training to the next level. Whoop's helped me do that. If you're looking to get started, here's a free wristband and a free first month. And if you don't like it, you can return it at no cost. All you have to do is go to the following: join.whoop.com/MGPP. That's join.whoop.com/MGPP. Mark Glicini Peak Performance, my clients, I trust Whoop. You should too. Enjoy. Let me know how you get on. Now, back to the episode. My final thoughts there is the strategy that Dr. Gilbert's bringing, passion that Coach Callanan's talking about, and the relationship aspect from Dr. Versari. Before I give you guys the microphone one last time, I just want to say, first and foremost, Dr. Versari, hours of conversation with you, video conferences and phone calls, sharing your knowledge and your expertise with me. I want to say it in front of all these people, you sharing your heart and your belief in me. Thank you. Dr. Gilbert, more books than I could ever read in a lifetime. Endless amounts of stories, lists,
Mark,
acronyms,
can I just piggyback on Dr.
and
Versari?
One-liners. Energy,
Mark?
energy. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say something about Dr. Versari. Dr. Versari teaches at a university. She started the university. I mean, I don't know anybody that started a university. That's unbelievable. It's totally unbelievable.
Go ahead. You have the floor, Dr. Versari. Go ahead.
Well, it wasn't really planned. If I look back, sometimes I find, how did I do that? But when I was working at the MBA and I wanted to teach people what I was learning, I started teaching at a small private university in San Diego. And we started a sports psychology program, and it became very well known internationally. So I had students moving here from a lot of different countries. And the school closed overnight. And I didn't know what to do with my students. I needed to find a place for them. So I went to the state regulators and I said, I need your help to find a place for my students. And they left the room. They were gone for a while. They came back with some paper and they said, open a school. That's the only way your students are going to have a place to go. And I had no idea how I was going to do that, how I'm going to open a school. I have just lost my job teaching there. And so I was undercapitalized, understaffed. I knew how to do business plans, so I did a business plan. And in 3 months, we had a university. I opened a university in 3 months with a very small funding. And again, undercapitalized, understaffed, had no idea how I was going to make it. But we do more for others than we do for ourselves. I opened the university to help the students, to help others, not only my students, but all the other students that were left without a university to go to. We had highly specialized degrees in expressive arts therapy, transpersonal psychology. So it was like a boutique university. You couldn't find those programs at any other place. So I think the motivation was to help others, and we find a way. When you're doing something to help others, you find a way. But thank you for saying that.
I'll dovetail into Coach Callanan. Coach, I didn't know if we would have time for it, but we do have time for it right now. You not only started the Mawa lacrosse program, you've started other programs, youth, all the way through high school. Dr. Versari is pointing to the fact that you have to have a vision and then you reverse engineer it to help people. You had a vision of starting the program. You know, Dr. Gilbert pointed out, thank God he was at that one class or else he would have missed the whole thing. And I got the chance to be in the grade in which you started the program. So could you speak to that similar, I started something because you had the vision?
Well, it's again. I think you know, a lot of those things we're talking about are all interconnected, right? So it's the vision, which again is just a vision. If you don't have the passion, the courage, and the tenacity to make that vision come true, and I think, you know, you know, there's so much going on. Listening to Dr. Gilbert and Dr. Versari just gets me going like a mile a minute, and you talk about how important it is, all the stuff we're talking about. And, you know, I often think of a story, one of my former players from the program I started in Michigan. And I've told this story to you many times, and was talking about how they elect or they select the corps commander, which is the number one kid in the body of students at the Citadel, like the head cadet. And he was a former player of mine, and we were talking. Called me for some direction, and he was a rising senior. It was during his junior year, and he's talking about, oh, like that we got to go so they can select the corps commander. And I was like, well, like, aren't you in the running for that? And he was like, no. And I'm like, well, they're going to pick one, aren't they? And I'm like, so why can't it be you? And he just like had this like this, you know, this awakening. He was like, you're right. I'm like, right, there's going to be one. Why can't it be you? Long story short, he became the corps commander of the Citadel. And you know, we laugh about it now. He's a captain in special forces awaiting promotion to major. But it's those things, no matter where you are, right? You wanted to be a college lacrosse player. I remember it. And you wanted to be the best there ever was. And I said, well, somebody's going to go play college lacrosse. Why can't it be you? And I think that's like this core. It sounds so like elementary, right? Like we're having this seminar in it, but it's really not. It's be the one. If that's what you want, then you be the one that's going to get it, you know? And I think, and also I think to people, I think a lot of people have dreams and thoughts and visions, and it's but they lack the mentorship or the propellant, right, to put a strategy together to then pursue it, and to be told by somebody, you can do that, and here's how we're going to do it, you know. And I think that's why I coach, and that's why I stay with it as long as I have.
I mean, Coach, thank you for sharing that story. I heard recently, and I love this idea. Rather than calling people out, call them forth, and that's what you did for that young man, right? And I felt that when I was very young. Something that you've always said, and I always say to myself, is be the one. Why not you? And I think that goes off nicely. What Dr. Versari was talking about is if you're going to focus on something, focus on the affirmative, focus on the uplifting aspect, because it's so easy to come up with the negative fantasy, the rumination. We oftentimes find ourselves more hurt in imagination than in reality. But if we can abracadabra and speak into existence and call ourselves forth, you talk about propellant, Coach. That's why I had this roundtable here tonight. I mean, we have all these people here, and I wanted to just give them that propellant going into the new year. I wanted to call it "Believe in Your Breakthrough" because the number one thing that I know is that we act out the stories we tell ourselves. We act out the stories we tell ourselves. If you can get your inner narrative correct and you call yourself forth rather than call yourself out because the criticism withers us and the praise builds us up, then you're able to step into that light, the light you've always wanted to step in. And you can start to be that identity that you want to be. So to wrap us up for the evening, this was called Believe in Your Breakthrough. I hope that you do set the goal and the vision for next year, right? Everybody does that. But how are we going to get there? I think there's action plans that need to be had. I think your inner narrative and your communication has to be on point. And I think you have to find the role models and mentors in your life that are going to help you get from here to there, right? It's more about a who and a how, going off the strategy that Dr. Gilbert talked about, rather than a what is going on in your life. I didn't get the chance to say thank you to Dr. Gilbert. You've given me more books than I could read in a lifetime, endless amount of stories, lists, acronyms, and one-liners. Energy, games, interactions help me as a presenter as well, sharing your heart and your belief in me. And then Coach Callanan, my first lacrosse coach, right? Another bucket of balls. Coffee shop conversations for hours, injections of Be the One into me. I hope that more people have Coach Callanans in their life. Thank you for sharing your heart and your belief in me. And I want to go around and just give you guys the microphone one more time to speak to people as we wrap up and put our conversation here in a bow. Presents for the holiday season. The easiest way to believe in yourself is to pour your belief into someone else, to encourage, to put your courage into someone else, right? This powered by Meaningful Growth Foundation, right? There's a lot of stuff in the chat here. We'll have it in the show notes as well. But each one of the people that I've had here on here tonight, including my board and my family, and those who have come from near and far to listen in, they've found that belief in other people. And I'm asking you to give that to yourself. Thank you so much to you three. Believe in your breakthrough. Dr. Versari, any final words in terms of believe in your breakthrough that you'll leave as advice or actionables for the listener?
Listen to your intuition. A lot of times we have some ideas, we have a sense of direction, and no one else has done that before, or it's not a very common thing. Just trust your intuition. If you have a strong sense that that's the direction that you must go, keep moving forward and don't give up.
Coach Callanan.
I mean, I would say, like I said earlier about, the only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. And I think, just kind of really giving yourself a good look in the mirror, a good self-analysis, self-awareness kind of review, and then see where you need to improve, set your goals, and just have an unwavering passion to reach it. And everything that you do, it's not something that you do at certain times of the day. Let it become who you are. And be passionate, be tenacious, be committed, be dedicated, be aware, and just embrace the present to ensure your future, and live with passion. That's what I would say.
Before I give you the microphone, Dr. Gilbert, to take us home, I think about this metaphor, right? A bucket of water, right? And you can really focus on the dirt that can be poured into it, the negative, the criticism, right? And you could spend a lot of your time taking a spoon and trying to scoop out the dirt. Or you could take a hose or a fresh amount of water and keep pouring it in with optimism, with hope and positivity, and keep flushing it. Believe in your breakthrough. A belief is a repeated thought. 90 to 95% of our thoughts are ones we had yesterday, right? So we got to take ownership of that next 5%. We have to put it on our mirror. We have to put it in our journal, and we have to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until what wires together fires together, what fires together wires together, and what becomes a thread turns into a cable over time. So have the repeated thought heading into the new year that serves you, that uplifts you, and who you decide to be. Doc Gilbert, on you.
Well, I just want to, you've been very, very, you've praised the three of us a lot, but let's look at the reality. Myself, Dr. Versari, and Coach Callanan, we are the past. You're the future of sports psychology. You're the smartest person I know in peak performance. You are the most passionate person I know in peak performance, and you're going to lead this field in the future. You're going to lead it forward. So I'm grateful just to be part of the future, because you're my legacy more than any of my students. You're my legacy. So I want to thank you for having me. And I'd just like to say one thing about teamwork, because all of us probably work with teams in one way or the other. And there's one very, very simple way to see how successful a season you had. And it's not by wins or losses. It's by, at the end of the year, are the members of the team glad the season is over or sad the season is over. And I am very sad that this seminar is over. I would stay here for the next 5 hours, and I wish we could unmute all the people because there are so many superstars out there. And I want to thank you for putting this together. And, you know, I don't want this to end. I really don't. And I'm very, very thankful. I got all these notes. See all my notes, Mark? I mean, I have all these notes. And thank you for putting this together.
Well, I don't know if I can do it by myself carrying those words. And I'm just so grateful to have a great team around me. I guess I'd finish by saying I learned recently that the opposite of survival mode is community. Right. So if you're thinking only about yourself, you're going to be thinking very negatively. There's no difference between thinking only about yourself and feeling miserable. Right. And the more you can find a community like I have with the Meaningful Growth Foundation, like I have in sports psychology and with these mentors, if I saw further, Doc, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And that's why I wanted to have giants here tonight. We will stay around after this recording ends in the next 10 seconds. But I just want to say, those listening, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and believe in your breakthrough in 2025.